this next section, we're going to start looking at the bones that make up our skeleton. So when babies are born, they have around 300 bones. And then by the time we're adult humans, we have 206. So it's quite interesting. You kind of think, well, what happened? A lot of those bones end up fusing together. So for example, when babies are born, we've got these plates on our skull that basically are mobile. They move around in order to be able to come out of the birth canal. And then over a period of time, they basically fuse together, they knit together, and they make up the skull. So that's basically 8 bones in the skull that fuse together and then make up one. Okay, so there's a little bit of trivia for you. So this part of our head, okay, we consider the skull, all right? At the front of the head is our cranium, we have our facial bones, and then down around the jaw, this is actually called your mandible. Just behind the ear, you can feel that there's a little bone that sticks out. That is called the mastoid process. Now, anytime you hear the word process, it indicates that that is where a muscle attaches. So that is your mastoid process. And then at the back of your head here, those 2 little bones, or that lower section at the back of the skull, that is called the occipital bone, or the occiput. Okay? So that is your skull. Then as we come down a little bit lower, these bones at the front, you've got one on the right and one on the left. We typically call them our collarbones, but in fact they are called the clavicles. And they actually make up part of the shoulder joint as well. So they attach at the shoulder joint here to this little part of the scapula. So we've got the scapula, one on the left and one on the right, and then there's a little bone at the top of the scapula that comes around called the acromion process, and it joins up with the clavicle and makes the AC joint. Okay, the clavicle also connects at the front here with the sternum. Okay, so oftentimes people might call this the breastbone. So this is your sternum, and where it joins in with the clavicle is now called the SC joint. From there, this top bone is called the humerus. And then down below we've got 2 bones that make up the forearm. So if I'm standing in an anatomical position, the bone that is closest to the thumb is called the radius, and the bone that is closest to the baby finger is called the ulna. So that's the radius and the ulna. And then around your hand, we've got all these little bones that make up the wrist. There are actually 8 of them, okay? And those little bones are called the carpals. And then we've got these long bones that run down called the metacarpals, and then our fingers are called phalanges. Okay, we've got our thumb obviously. So that is basically your upper body, the shoulder girdle. And then connecting your head all the way down towards the pelvis is your spine. And we're going to look at the spine in a little bit more detail. But basically, we have got vertebrae that make up the spine, and they have all these little segments that we can move and twist and flex and extend, and they can control our movements. The thoracic spine, we have ribs that connect to the thoracic spine. So we've got 12 thoracic vertebrae, and we have 12 sets of ribs. We've got a set on the right, and we have a set on the left. So that goes from T1 down to T12. Then connecting the spine to the pelvis, we have this lower section of the spine called the sacrum, and the sacrum actually is what connects to the right and left halves of the pelvis. So the pelvis is not a solid bone. We've got right and left portions of it. And where the sacrum connects to the ilium, or the iliac crest, is called the sacroiliac joint. So there's a joint back here. It wraps around, and at the pubis, this is called the pubis symphysis, It's not a solid bone, there's a little bit of cartilage there that allows us to have a little bit of mobility at the pelvis, obviously, so that we are able to walk. Okay? And there are some identifying landmarks on the pelvis. These two little bony points at the front of the pelvis are called the ASIS. Okay, so that stands for anterior superior iliac spine. Okay, so we've got ASIS, and we've got the pubis. Those are sort of landmarks on the front of the pelvis. And then around at the back, if you run your thumbs over the top of your pelvis, this is called your iliac crest at the top. And if you run your thumbs down the back, you get to two little bony landmarks at the back of your pelvis, and those are called the PSIS. That is your posterior superior iliac spine. So oftentimes we'll look at those just to see if the pelvis is level or not. Okay? At the bottom of your pelvis, if you were to sit down, those two little bones that you sit on, we oftentimes call them the sits bones. In fact, the proper name for them is the ischial tuberosity. Okay, so it's quite a long word. If you call it the sit bone, everybody knows what you're talking about. And then these thigh bones here are your femur. And this is one of the longest long bones on your body. And then we have a little floating bone here, the kneecap. And the proper name for the kneecap is the patella. And then below the patella, we have two bones in our lower leg here. There's a big thick bone that runs down the center called the tibia. And then just along the side of the leg is a more slender bone, and that is called the fibula. So oftentimes people will talk about the tib-fib, and that's what they're talking about. So what's interesting here is if you put your fingers on your ankle and you feel the bone on the inside and the bone on the outside, it kind of feels like it's the same bone, but in fact, the inside bone, which is called your medial malleolus, that's actually the lower end of your tibia. And then the outside ankle bone, which is called your lateral malleolus, that is the lower end of the fibula. Okay? And together, they actually do help to form the ankle joint. And then in your feet, very similar to the hands, we have a whole series of bones, sort of irregular shaped bones, that are called the tarsals. And then we have long bones coming off them called the metatarsals. And then interestingly enough, your toes are also called phalanges. So exactly like your hands, okay? So you've got phalanges on your hands and you've got phalanges on your feet. And then, last of all, you've got this little bone at the heel, which is called your calcaneus, okay? And that is your heel bone.